coming soon, the updated YouTube and putting that onto the website. So I know it recorded, it somehow didn't upload, even though it said it uploaded, it didn't do it. So we'll get that up there. Excuse me. Other questions? Yes.
Could you possibly go over making brushes, or if if you
Yeah,
made
let me put
brushes?
that down. I don't want to just kind of jump it, but let me, making brushes, I'm going to put that down and I will go through that we'll do that on Tuesday.
Okay.
Making brushes. Okay, we'll go over that brushes. We'll go over brushes in general, plus making brushes. Good. Anything else that you guys, questions or things you like, well, I'm not sure about? Okay, so we'll get that in. If you think of something, just send me an email or shout out today, put it in the chat, something like that. Excuse me, and we'll get to that. Like I said, this is your first class. You're gonna have whole semesters of just Photoshop class. But I want to make sure you guys have a good grounding into that, and those that have been doing it for a while, again, you might have specific questions like this one on brushes. So just let me know and we will get that covered on that. All right. So I want to go quickly over the record album, and I'm going to do some demos with that, which is going to be our next project. Again, predominantly Photoshop based on that. So I did put that up on the site. So let me just share my screen. And boom. So on the assignments, you should see the album cover rock or album cover designs. And basically we're doing two bands or two album covers. One, I want you to pick one of your favorites, band, musician, such. And then I want you to pick a second album that might be your parents, your aunt, grandparents, something like that's favorite band or musician. Okay, so I want you to kind of do a quick interview with them. As designers, we're going to have to be talking with our clients, asking questions of our clients, writing down information that the clients give us. So this is kind of just a quick intro. So do it for a family member, something like that. Like I said, aunt, grandparent, mom, dad. It's also a way to kind of maybe get to know them a little bit better, figure out what their favorite music or band or musician is. Okay, so it's two covers we're going to be doing. One is one of your favorites, and then the second is going to be for a relative or something like that. Okay, so it's going to be completely different. Again, I want you to kind of talk to them and just figure out, what it is and who is it and why they like them, and hear some stories. And I think it'd be a good thing to do. Okay, so what's going to be included on the album cover? And I'm going to go through this as a mock-up today, but we're going to have the front, which is going to be artwork. Typically, we're going to have the art. We're going to have the title of the album and the artist. Okay, and now I'm going to just make up stuff today, but I want you to, for this, pick a real band, but I want you to kind of make an album that's kind of for today. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, say you love the Beatles. So I don't want you to redo Abbey Road's album cover. I want you to make up a new record as if they came out with a new one today. Does that make sense? So let's say they magically got all the records together or found some new tracks and put out a new record. Or it's for your favorite artist and this would be their next record. So we're not recreating an existing album cover. We are kind of creating a new version, maybe a greatest hits or something along those lines. Does that make sense?
So are we making up songs to put on the back?
Yes, we are. So we're going to have on the back a list of songs. Now it could be for that, I don't care. You can use existing songs, or you can make up what would be your favorite names for songs, type of thing. So on the back, you're correct. We're gonna have a list of songs typically there. We're gonna also typically find, list of the band members, and then we're gonna have some legal information, copyright, UPC, all that kind of stuff. That'll typically be at the bottom. So we're gonna mock all of that up, and then with this, I'm gonna give you a digital file that you can work at with Photoshop. You can also do the wording that goes on the album itself, the vinyl itself. So you'll see that in just a second. Okay. So they're basically 12 by 12, and then you're going to save them as PDFs, and you will send those to me, and they're going to be due on the March 2nd. Okay. So let me open up my Photoshop. Let me get it going. So save that in case we need that. Did you guys play with this? Everybody get some time to kind of work with the house and work with the lightning, work with the sky. Okay. Again, it's just an exercise for you guys, but I want you guys to to work at that. Not too difficult, but I think the more you do, and the more you kind of have a reason and what you're trying to do, a kind of a vision, that will help. Okay. So if you haven't, please get to that. All right, and there's the lightning we had. Close that. Close that. And we'll close that one for now. All right. So I'm going to start with the record cover, and then on our website now, you're going to see a little download file called Record Cover Mockup. Now this is a PSD, it's a Photoshop file. Okay, so you just have to download that to your computer, and you'll be able to then work with it. So I'm going to open that up first now. Okay, so here's, it's going to look something like this when you download it. It's a 27 meg file. So obviously PSD files are a little bit larger. So we kind of went over this real quick on Tuesday, where I said we're going to be starting to work with mockups, and it's a good way to kind of show your client what you're going to be doing. So this is a mockup that you can use in order to do this, but you're going to be creating your artwork as separate files, and you're going to be bringing it in. Okay, so it has the vinyl, which you can turn on and off. It's got the cover file. This is a background, the chance of color here, and then you could put another background image if you want in there. Okay, so it's a lot to do with this album cover. Okay, and then we have the layers here that are going to be what we're going to be using to actually install and put your artwork on it. And you can see it's a editable file. It's going to be basically a template file. When we double click on it, it's going to ask us to add our artwork to the smart object of the area. So this is where we're going to be bringing our stuff to, but I want to start with just kind of working it up as a file. So I'm going to start making a just a new file. And in this case, we're going to be 12 inches by 12 inches. And we're going to be at 300 DPI. RGB is where you want to be. And then we're just going to click OK. And that's going to be our initial area that we're going to be working with our records. And just so you know, even today, we still have some vinyls out there. I think they're still making some CDs. Mostly now that we're downloading them, but even if a download, you go to the iTunes store or something like that, they're still in this kind of a 12 by 12 format. They're small, right? So now they're like 1 inch by 1 inch or less, but it's still a very similar format that you want to work with, and it's a format that people are very familiar with when it comes to music, and we've all grown up with music. So I'm going to open up my first file. And I got some stuff I shot yesterday. I got out of the house for once, and I got the Joshua Tree for a couple hours yesterday. So I'm going to do this. We'll put this on the cover because I think this will work better for the cover. And then we're going to use this as the back element. And we've got some open space here to put some text on, which won't be a problem. So I'm going to open up the picture first. And I'm going to just copy it. And I'm going to put it into my 12 by 12 format. See how it fits. And you can see I brought it in and it's still a little small. So I can do two things now. I can crop it or enlarge it to fit. And I can also add, I mean, here I've got this blue sky and it's pretty solid. So adding on additional blue at the top won't be a problem at all. In fact, it might work out nicely if I just kind of move this picture down. Okay, and I think I'm going to enlarge just a little bit, get rid of some of this bush. Going to a Command T, transform. I'm just going to scale it a little bit, kind of center. And then I want to get this background to be the blue. So I'm just going to do a new layer. I'm going to actually just put it below so I have some flexibility. And I want to get this blue. So over here, the tool we haven't played too much with is called the eyedropper tool. Okay, it's above the healing brushes, and we click on that. And if we click anywhere on the picture, you'll see our color palette change over here in the bottom left, right? So I can pick, you know, on the rock, on the tree, and I'm getting different colors as I go. But I want the sky, so I'm going to hit that blue, and then I'm going to come back over here to my paint bucket, which is below my gradient tool. And I'm just going to paint it in. Now, it did pretty good. It wasn't perfect. Maybe not as perfect as I want. So a couple things I could do here. I could put it into this layer, paint it here. And hopefully that maybe, it's not going to be much better, but it's going to give me a different line and I can kind of clean that line up. Or I can take this existing hard line where it's kind of, you can kind of see it here, and maybe kind of blend it together. Okay. And how can I blend it? Well, I can come up to my top layer here and I can kind of soften this whole edge up. Okay, so this is something where I probably would use something like the eraser tool. And I'm going to put it on a really soft brush with basically a 0 hardness. And I'm going to just kind of click and take it along. So what I've done is kind of soften that edge. So when I turn this back on, you see it kind of pretty much disappears. It's there just a little bit, but not too bad with that. And I can maybe even select the blue up here a little again, and do the eyedropper tool. And I'm going to come back and paint in this layer again. Go back to my paint bucket and paint that in. That's not too bad. You really can't see that line. I'm just looking at it here on the screen. It's not too bad. I think we can kind of work with that. So what I've done is just basically add it on to the photograph. That makes sense. If I just stretched it, I would be losing this nice space here, which is going to be really good for the title of our record album. Okay, so I didn't want to do that. Now, one thing I'm probably going to do now, because I want to do some adjustments for this photo, some lightening and darkening with the tree and the rock itself. So it's going to be better if I merge these together. Okay, so by merging them, whenever I make an adjustment, it's going to affect all of it, not just the layer of the rock and the tree. Okay, it's going to also affect layer 2. So I'm going to just merge these down because I'm happy with the background. Merge down. Now I've got one layer with everything on it. And then I can start to work. So I'm going to make a copy just in case. And I'm just come in here and kind of play with some items. I'm going to do a little brightness contrast on that layer. Just want to brighten it just a little bit. Bump up the contrast. Let me see where I want to go. I'm going to actually drop the contrast, put the brightness down. I'm just trying to pull out some of the tones here. And then I think I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to make this a smart layer. Okay. And let me see here what I'm thinking of. So let me undo that smart layer. I'm going to dodge it a little bit. So I'm just going to pull in, again, I'm dodging. I'm just kind of bringing out some of the highlights of the stone. Maybe a little bit of the foreground. Just brightening a little bit. And a little bit along the tree. Just want to kind of even it out. It's a little dark. The sun, you can see the shadow coming in. There's a little bit behind it. I think I'm just using the dodge tool to lighten. Again, if you go too far, remember you can come back and you can burn it a little bit. Use the burn tool to light or darken things back up. So let's say here I got a little bit too light right down here, okay? Too much. I'm gonna come back in with the burn tool. I'm just gonna burn that down a little bit. Okay, so I can kind of basically take it all the way back if I want with that. All right, and I can go back and forth with the dodge and burn to make it happen. All right, and we're okay for that for now. So we have a little bit of a lightning happening, just kind of pulling it up just a little bit. Remember, things are going to print darker than what you see on the screen. Okay, so if we were to print this commercially and they're going to make, you know, 1 million copies at the commercial printer, it's going to come out a little bit darker. So it's up to us to kind of brighten it just a little bit. So when it gets to the commercial printer, it's going to have that pop that we're looking for. And I think I want to maybe just look and see if I want to do anything else in here. I'm going to actually at this point make it a smart filter, and I'm going to add a little bright. I want to do a little sharpening on it. Let's do a little unsharp mask. Just to, it's going to, you can see it's just popping the light, right? So here it is off, here it is on. So it's just kind of bringing out a little bit of details, in this case on the tree. And then on the rock, it's bringing in this edge where the sun is hitting. It's brightening it, giving a little bit of a pop. Okay, so I'm going to be, we'll see, that's good. So I've added that in. Again, as a smart filter here with the unsharp mask, if I don't like it later, I can turn it off. Okay, so again, we were being non-destructive with that. So now we have the basis of our album. And again, there's a million other things you can do with it, right? You can add other filters and effects to this. Feel free, okay? You can find existing pictures if you like, but again, make sure that they're high quality. Make sure the resolution is good. Or I recommend just, you know, take your camera phone and go take some pictures. All right. You know, we're not due for a week and a half. So go find some, you know, some place and get some pictures. And then you have your own artwork that you're bringing into it. And again, you can come back in and do some other filters and effects with it. Let me just, I'm just going to do one. I know we're going to undo it later. Yeah, I don't like that one. Let me see. So kind of crystallize it. Nah, I'm not happy with that. And that's fine, right? Because I can just turn that off, right? I can just turn that filter off. And if I know I don't want it, I can delete it. Okay, so again, we're working well with that. All right, so to keep things moving along, I'm going to, we're going to give it a title. So I'm going to click on my T for my type tool. Now, 99% of the time, you're going to be doing the horizontal. Now, why do they have the type mask tool? That's if you want to bring in type to an area. okay, or add other images in within the type. But we're going to just real quick now just do the type horizontal tool. And we're going to call it the kiss. Now it's picking up the blue I had down here as a color. I will adjust that here in just 1 second. Clicking my character. Again, you'll see that up top here. You can pull that down a little bit. The screen gets a little weird. Up here, so you also have the color here. So you can pick the color from here or from here. I'm going to pick from here. I'm just going to go white. We're pretty close to white. My color picker. And we have the name. I always, for me, this tree and rock always feel like they're getting ready to kiss. I call it's my, they call it just cypress tree, or but for me, it's always seems like they're kissing. They want to kiss. So I want to make it larger, of course. And again, I'm not necessarily worried about point size here. I just want to go visual. So I'm just going to go do a quick Command T or transform, and I'm just going to drag. Remember, with new Photoshop, you do not need to hold the Shift key anymore to do that. And I'm just going to put that up yonder here. Now, I do have a built-in ruler. Okay, so you can see here is a 0 and 0. So that's kind of this corner is 0, 0. Okay, now I made this 12 by 12, so I know 6 is where my center is. To make a guide, just kind of put your cursor over the ruler and drag. And you can see that come in, and I can put that at 6 and drop it. Now I have a guide that I can use to help center things. So I can select my type and Command T, and I can see, even though I thought, wow, that was pretty close, I am really off with the center. And this is really the center of the word. So I can pull that back over, and again, I'm using the arrow keys to kind of move that into position. So now it truly is centered on the cover. It was off, and it was off enough that it would have probably pulled things out of whack down the line. Now I'm not sure if I like this typeface the most, so I'm going to go back to my character, and I'm going to just kind of highlight, save there. And as I scroll over, it should be changing. Now again, I'm not worried about the size at this point because I know that by changing typefaces, it's going to change. Okay, and I will be able to make those adjustments later. Oh, this is kind of crazy cool. Let me do this. I'm going to scale it back down because I know I'm way off size. I'm going to put this in here like this, a little larger. Again, just kind of working it. Now, things you can think about is I could pull this down a little bit where it's kind of crossing over the tree. I could also maybe come back in and do a little masking to make it look like it's going behind the tree. Because I got enough letter forms that are there, that's good. Now, one thing I can see right away with this is, see how these S's aren't connecting? They should connect. So what that means is I need to adjust this, the tracking between the two. So it's at 60. So I'm going to put this back to 0 again. Let me get that out. And I'm going to put that track to 0. And you can see by doing that, it pulled those back in line. But it did shift things, right? So I'm going to do Command T again. I'm going to shift this over to get me centered again. So keep an eye on your type as you're doing it. And again, it's kind of a back and forth. You're making things bigger, smaller, adjusting as you go, and then compensating for that. So we've got this here. And again, I could push this up so it's not on this, or I could kind of come back in and I could mask out this area here. So this kind of just below or just behind the tree. Okay, so there's just ways of doing it. Likewise, it won't work here, but if I wanted to, I could pull something like this, where the word is actually going behind the rock. You can see that here. If I did this, it's going to cover too much. But if I had a different typeface, I might be able to pull that off, where it looks like the words are behind the rock, should I want to do that. All right, so I'm going to pull this back up. Going to check my center. Again, just Command T. I'm just transforming it, moving it over. And I'm going to pull that down a little bit. Boom. Okay. So we're on our way for making this the front of our album. So we got the title, we've got our artwork or imagery. And next we obviously have to have a band that does that. So I'm going to go back to my type tool and I don't know. I'm a big Billy Joel fan. Okay, so this is with the same typeface, and I could put this in here, or I could change this up. It's a little harder with this because it's a little more delicate down here. So I want to kind of go over ways that we can work with type on top of images, in particular photos. One of the things you're going to find when you're dealing with photos is what makes a photo great is there's bright and there's dark. So think of it as white and black. So type is going to be typically one color. Okay, whatever color it is you happen to pick. Now, the white reads pretty well here, but it's just a little bit lost in the brightness back here. But it reads fairly well over here. Now I could change the color, and let's just say I went with, and we'll pick a color from the tree. And as you'll notice when I go in my color picker, if I move off the color picker, it turns into an eyedropper. Okay, so I can pick a color from my picture, and we're gonna pick this dark stone here. And by doing that, you can see it basically got completely obliterated. You can't see it at all. So I want to go through some ways of making this type work. Again, we'll assume you want to go with this kind of color. So a couple things that we can do, a couple tricks as they are. Pull that up. One, we could do an effect. Okay, we could give it something like an outer glow or bevel emboss. Those kind of things work. So we're just going to do, or drop shadow. Let me give you an outer glow on this. And you can see here by doing that, I'm using white as an outer glow. It gave me this kind of, I don't know, we'll call it a fuzzy background, right? It's a glow, literally. And we can change that glow to make it more or less. Okay, so just a little bit of glow. So sometimes we want it to be very apparent. Sometimes we might want to just be real soft with it. Okay. Now remember also with this, it also gives me a blend mode. And we can check those out. It doesn't change the way it does with the normal blend mode, but it will give you the same thing. So I'm going to do like an overlay, and that one kind of diminishes it. Soft light, it's there. It's helping a little bit. Hard light gives me that. So I can kind of just go through and mix these up and see what's going to work for me. Give me the look and feel that I might be looking for. So don't be afraid to kind of go through these. Take the time. Again, just kind of selecting them, lighten. All right, we'll say we want to keep that. Now I can also, again, we change the opacity. The noise will be how much dots or specks are kind of happening in it. So here I added a lot of noise, and you can kind of see the representation down here on the right as to what it's doing. And it actually works because of the texture of the stone. So it works pretty well with that. And then over here, there's no noise. So it's kind of real soft, but you can kind of define it a little bit more. So I'm going to maybe pull it up a little bit here. We have other things. We have the precise or softer. The spread is how much it's going to spread out. You can see that there. Okay. Put that pretty soft. And then the size, how much is it glowing? All right, so this is just a little bit. kind of gives you almost like an outline. And you can see if we pull that down, we can play with that and we're getting a whole other look by simply doing that, okay? And again, I don't want this hard edge, but this is kind of a way you can kind of work that with this spread is soft and the hard, I should say, and the size is small. Okay, so I want to kind of fuzz it out a little bit. I want to keep it kind of soft with that. I'm just looking for a happy area there. And then there's also, and down here, the contour, which is the edging. Okay, and I'm going to make it hard so you can see it. Okay, so you can kind of see these. I'm going to go through some of these different things. And it's going to change the edge of what we're looking at. Okay, so these are, again, all options that you can use in order to, make your work different and unique. And you're going to find these same kind of items on many of these style tools. Okay, so just know that it might default to this, but there are other options available. Okay, so I want you to know that everything is kind of adaptable as you go with this. I'm going to soften it a little bit. And I'm going to drop the opacity a little bit. And a little bit of a pop there. Okay. So that's one way of kind of making type stand out, is by kind of, in this case, we added a glow to it. Now, there again, you could do outlines. You could pick a font that obviously is a little bit heavier, so it reads a little bit easier. You could play with other filters back here, right? So if I'm double clicking on it, sorry. I could do any number of these, color, outer glow, inner glow. I'm gonna do a drop shadow so you can see that here. Let me turn off. Let's click OK. Let me turn off the oh, I'm on the wrong layer. What am I doing here? Totally wrong layer. Okay, so here I'm going to do a drop shadow. Where is that? Right there. Turning off the outer glow, and I got a drop shadow going on. And it's got a gray tone. I'm going to put it up to white, so it'll pop. And again, you can see where I can play with the spread and the size. I can make it go closer or further. I can pick the angle that it's coming from. And I can also, again, here play with the quality of it. Okay, so again, these are just different ways that you can pop it out. Okay, so we'll say that's the drop shadow. I'm going to go back to the outer glow. I like that one better. And you can see you can combine. Here's the outer glow and the drop shadow. Probably a little bit much. Okay. Now, another way that you can kind of work with type a lot of times is what I call like an opacity box. Basically, we're going to make a shape and fill it with a color and put it behind the type. Okay, so I'm going to go up here. No, tools. Down here to my tool shapes. And I'm going to go with a rounded rectangle tool. And I'm going to make a new layer. And it's going to kind of draw it on top of where I think I might want it to be. And kind of drop it. And again, want the blue. I don't want blue. So I'm going to then come back here with my white. And I'm going to bucket fill it to white. I'm going to drop that below my text, and you can see that's there. Let me go to my properties a little bit. Align, okay. Transform, we're fine there. And what I want to do is kind of drop the opacity down so it lets you see the picture below. In this case, I want to see the picture below, but it also allows the type to show. So here I'm going back to opacity, and I'm just going to drop it. Okay, so this is another way, kind of like a glow, but it's more of a defined area that you can do that with. You can also look at what happens if you play with some of the blend modes. That might help a little bit. We'll put that there and put the up to 100%. That kind of a effect. Now, the cool thing is it's also sizable, right? I can go Command T, and I can obviously center that, but I can scale it, right? So I can pull that in or out to whatever size that I happen to want it to be. And if I want to move just one side, not the other, hold the shift. And then when I drag, it's just that one area it's being moved, not the whole thing. Okay. So doing a type or opacity box behind your type worked out very well. In this case, I've only got 2 words. I don't really need it here. I think I can do, I think those outer glow kind of thing works much better. But you're going to see on the back of the record album where the text will be much better to have potentially a opacity box. Let's turn that off for now. I'm going to turn the effect back on with my type. Yeah, we're going to be good with that. So we're kind of done. You got to want to save this. Okay. Save PSD. Keep it as a PSD in case you want to change it later. Well, let's put that on the desktop. So PSD is going to have my layers. Now that I'm done with this and I'm going to want to bring it into my other file, I'm going to save as a JPEG. So when we bring it into the mockup file, we're going to want it as all one flattened layer. So it'll come in nicely. And I'm going to hit that as a JPEG and click save. And I'm going to do a maximum quality here. With that, click OK. So now coming back, I can get rid of this file. 1 second. And come back to my vinyl mockup. And I want to adjust the cover. So I'm going to double click on that, and you can see it brought it up as a separate little layer, a little file. And I'm going to import or open my KISS file. So JPEG, open. I'm copying, Command A, Command C. So selecting all and copying. And I'm coming back here, and I'm going to paste, Command V. And we dropped it in. You can see its size is big for our mockup, which is fine. We're going to look, it's going to be really, really good quality when it's all said and done here. Kind of get that there. Let me scale a little bit. Okay, hit return. Now all these below do not matter because we have this here. I'm going to just do a save. And when I close this, we come back over to our mockup, and you can see it's now put in place. Okay, so we have the mockup now with our design on it. And we're basically almost halfway done the record. Okay, now the part here is the vinyl. That's the record here. I can open that up. And likewise, I can design the artwork for the area. And the safe area means this is the area that's going to be shown. Okay, this is not something you want to turn on when you're done. You're happy, you turn it off. All right, so I'm going to do this here. I'm going to build a new layer. And I'm just going to turn these off. And I'm going to give it a new color. And I'm going to do my layer here, do some type. Again, if anyone's confused or such, please let me know. Oops. So I'm just kind of getting my words in place, looking at my safe area so I know that I'm in there. I'm within that. And then I'm going to do another layer. Just, oops, I don't need that. And I'm going to give that, I'm going to scale that down. Character. I know I want this smaller, so I'm just going to click a number. There we go. And move that up and center that as such. Make sure I'm in my safe area. I am, but I want to center. Oops.
Danny?
Yes.
How many types of font would you use for a single album cover?
It's your choice. I mean, I would always recommend, whether it be album cover, book cover, whatever, 2 to 3 at the most. It's different. Well, let's say we've got this typeface on the front. When I go to the back, I can go whatever I want. I could keep using the same typeface to create some continuity and unity, or I could go with something totally different. But you don't want to get too many typefaces going. It creates a lot of craziness. So, you know, most times it's recommended 2 to 3 at the most. In this case, I'm only using 1. Okay. But when we say 2 to 3, some typefaces have multiple, they have bold and semi-bold and light. That really only counts as 1 because it's all the same typeface. We're just using different weights. Okay. So, you know, when you're dealing with the same typeface with different weights, all of that kind of really counts as 1. Okay, but it's like we're using this kind of, I don't know, we'll say script font here, and then I do with something else that's kind of a serif, and then I add a sans serif. Before you know it, we're going so crazy that the eye will just kind of go wacko. Okay. So we're going to call this golden for now. Turn off that. Again, I'm going to save, and I'm going to close that. And now you can see it was added to the vinyl. Okay, so just by doing that, it did that. Now, again, we're mocking these things up. And likewise, I could make a new picture back here. So I could add in something else. Let me open up another photo. I know I got some like, space stuff. It has nothing to do with this, but NASA. NASA. That Mars thing land today. How cool is that? You gotta love smart people, guys. Thank God, right? I mean, thank God for people that can create these programs and do all this kind of call it black magic, man. I mean, it's like it's amazing.
They actually landed the
rover, right? The new
recently,
rover. Yeah.
it just landed. So that's
But
cool.
like I said, we need to thank the smart people, right, to let us do our jobs. I'm just going to open this up just for the sake of opening it. Command Alt, Command C. And I'm just going to paste it down here. You can see that's behind it. It's going to scale that way up. So you can see you don't need to keep the existing background. You can change it to something else if you wanted to. Okay, so it's a lot of flexibility with this template kind of thing, this mockup. Do that, we'll call that good. It's off a little bit. Okay. So all of this is kind of adjustable. Kind of adding a little glow on there. And if you don't like it, again, you can go back to the white. And you can see what it did here was a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so here's the shadows that are in there. If you didn't want the shadows, you can turn those things off. So it's a pretty cool template to work with. So we're basically doing here, in this case, the front, and you're going to save this as a PDF. So you can do File, and we're going to export. I think we can, I think it's saved. We can do a save as a PDF. Save as PDF. And I'm gonna just call it 2, give it a number. Now, when you do the PDFs, guys, same thing with your book jackets. And someone sent me a file that was like, it was too big, I couldn't send it. They had a Dropbox it kind of thing. Turn off the layers. Okay, this is what's like adding like so much, because basically your files are all those layers, and by saving it as a PDF with layers, you're basically saving it as a PSD or a Photoshop file with all the layers. So turn that off. I don't need layers. Layers, now it's going to save it quite small and quite well. So hit save, and you get the options. High quality, it's fine. Smallest is fine. Okay. Press quality is a little bit better if you had to print it, but we're not printing. I'm just looking at it. So I'm fine with smallest or high quality. Either one of these is perfectly fine. I usually save it as the compatibility of the highest number, whatever's available. It lets you take advantage of the new Acrobat that came up. Make sure preserve Photoshop editing capabilities is turned off, and then hit save. And it did that. So it's saved as probably a pretty small file. I'll take a look at it here in a second. Now we can do the back. Okay, so we're going to leave this alone. We're going to come back over here, and I'm just going to leave this here. We've saved it. I'm going to start with a new file. I could start on top of this, but maybe grouping all this together into a folder. So let me do that just so you can kind of see how that goes. And I'm going to put all of this in that group. I'm just dragging it in. And is that everything? Yep. So I've got everything in that folder. This is just the backup. And I can actually label that. Double clicking on it to activate it. Front album. And now I'm going to do a new one. I can just start with the folder now. Back album. And start working it. So again, it's all going to be one file, KISS PSD, but I've got the front and the back that I'm going to work. Now I want to bring in that other picture that I want. So I'm going to open, download, put this one in. Command A, selecting all, Command C, and then I'm going to come back over here and paste it, Command V. And again, here we've got pretty much the same sky that I can work with, and I can add to that, or I can scale it up. I think I'm going to scale. So I'm just adjusting my picture to fit. That's covering all of our area. And now I'm going to need to add in the titles of the albums and stuff. Now, because I've got this big area that's basically neutral, it's blue, but it's neutral. I could just type on top of this. I could just add my words on top. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try to work your work your type so you have some adjustability to it. So I'm just going to real quick, I'm going to pick a simpler type to work with because this is a little bit complicated. we're just gonna hit Helvetica. Everybody knows Helvetica. And I'm gonna put, we'll do bold there. I'm gonna just put side 1. And I'm gonna scale that into place that I want. It's a little bit big. And then I'm going to put in a couple songs. So I'm making a new text box, okay? It's gonna give me some flexibility and also allow me to change the typeface should I want to. So, and I'm gonna make this smaller to start with, just to get me going. I'm just making up some words. Okay, so I typed those in, but you see I've got this huge leading going on. Okay, so right now the leading was set at 85, which is way too much. Okay, now just so you know, the leading typically is going to be very close to the type size. So this is 36. So if I put this at 36 for the leading, look, you see it came out pretty close. It's always pretty close in there. And in this case, it's fine to make kind of a return and type, because I know I want them to all line up. They're going to be justified together. And I'm going to change it into a little bit different face. So this is the Helvetica narrow. This is going to be Helvetica bold. And this is 36. That was 28. So you can see that's a little bit big. I'm just going to pull this to 24. And again, I have to go back now and adjust that leading. Pull that back to 24. We'll put that there. Okay. So I've got the room. And again, if I decide, you know what, I want to make it all larger. I want everything to become larger proportionally. I can select those layers over here in my layers panel and do Command T, and then I can just stretch them visually, right? So I'm just opening it up so I can get that to whatever size I happen to want. So I'm not really worried about the number. I'm just visually doing it because I know it's going to be pretty close. And then I can come back in and modify spacing and lettering if I want to. So we're going to put that there. It's a bit big, but I want to show you how we can do that. So now side 1, I feel like the leading is too much between that and the piano man. So I've selected side 1. I'm going to make sure slide 1 is only selected. And I'm just using my arrow keys, and I'm reducing the leading manually, visually looking at it. Okay, so it makes no difference what the character panel says because there's nothing else below. It's a separate text box. So I'm just kind of moving elements around so it works on the page for me. Okay, and I'm going to select them both. I'm going to pull it over a little bit. Now side 2, we're going to have a side 2. So I'm just going to duplicate it. Okay, so it made copies, and then I can drag that down. And we're going to do side 2 down here. And then you start to see some of the problems we're getting into with the type in this area here where it's a little bit light. All right, so I'm going to come back in here and change this. I'm going to make it side 2. And then we're going to change the names of the song. So what I could do is I could, again, go back to those kind of things we played with on the front, add in a glow or something like that. But I think here is really a good place for that opacity box to come into play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my type, my tool here, And I'm just checking I'll pull this. What I'm doing here is I'm adjusting the radius of my curve, my box. I'm going to do a new layer, and I'm just kind of draw it in. Now I don't want that. I want to get maybe the brown down here. That's funny. If picking a little bit lighter. Well, maybe try this here. And I'm going to repaint that color. I'm going to drop it below my type. And you can see now the type is reading very well because it's on a single color background. Now I want obviously some of the background to show, so I'm going to just play with the opacity and drop that down a little bit so I can see the words and then also see the box. I'm going to move the box over just a little bit.
Cái dây này tiện nha. Good string, my favorite string.
Okay, so now we've got this type or this opacity box going behind, and you can see how much better it reads when it's turned on. Okay, so you'll see this done quite often with type on photos because it's a much easier way of letting you see type, right? Because of the single color of the type, and then we have the multicolors of the background images happening. Okay, so play with that. Now, other things I said we're going to want to put on here is potentially information about the artist or the band members. Okay, so again, that could be, you know, down here. I'm just going to draw some boxes so you can see where they would be. You know, so something like, you know, a box of the band members, who's in a band, or any that kind of information. Sorry, I want to do that on a separate layer. So I have my flexibility. Okay, so there's going to be a new layer there with the band info. And then we're going to want a UPC. Okay, and that's going to be just kind of a little spot in the corner. It's going to be a UPC mark. And you can just download those off the internet. You can kind of get those for that. Okay, and just kind of drop that in. So this would be the back. And again, I'm going to just save the whole file. Okay, we're just a new grouping here. And then I'm going to save as. We'll call it Kiss Back, JPEG. Then come back to my vinyl here. And what I'm going to do is replace this now. So I now want the back in there. I'm going to open that up. Kiss back. Just going to scale it to fit. Oh, that's not what I want. Wrong layer. Okay, much better. Again, just scaling it to fit. Too small. Let's up a little bit. Okay, turn that off. We're good. Gonna save. That one. Come back to my mockup, and you can see now it's flipped to the back. And I can change the vinyl, or I could potentially just turn the vinyl off. It's fine. And now we've got the back, and I'm going to save that as a PDF to be turned in. Okay, so we're mocking it up front, back. And we're doing that for 2 records. You know, one is your favorite, kind of a contemporary, what would be their next album. And then the other is for your parents, grandparents, something, aunt, uncle. Again, just to kind of get a little bit of practice of talking with others and getting some information. And, you know, feel free to be creative. You know, if your mom loves red roses, make the record Red Roses or something like that. And, you know, feel free to go take a picture of some red roses. Go to Trader Joe's and take your camera phone. Nobody's going to say anything today. In days past, man, people got freaky when you were taking pictures. Now, I think they're so common. Everybody's like, oh, they're taking pictures. No big deal. All right. So that's going to be the record album. And that's going to be due in a week and a half, basically, on March 2nd on that. Okay. So again, now we're starting to introduce text onto pictures. And remember, we could do something like this with a kind of opacity box. Okay. Or we could do something where we added a glow or outlines, those kind of things to the record for the type. Okay. Where is that? Here we got the glow, right? The outer glow behind it. Okay, so a couple ways that we can play with type and help it to pop out in the visual type of thing. All right, questions on that?
I got a question.
Yes.
How do you bring up the Selective Tool?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The Selective Tool box. How you bring it up? I couldn't find it.
On the tools right here.
On the
You should have something. I don't know what it's going to look like. It typically defaults to what was ever you used last. But is this the box? This the one you're talking about?
No, the Selective Tool. The one with the.
Oh, you mean the one that you can kind of select? So like the V key or.
Yeah.
The
camera thing.
What was it? I'm sorry.
So the V tool or the move tool.
Move right here. So it's up top, the top one. And just kind of, if you have it on select layer, it should select the layer automatically.
You see the Selective Tool on top right of your screen, top left. I mean, it says Selective Tool.
Yes.
Selective tool. Oh, you mean the?
Oh, here.
Yeah.
This is mine. No, you guys don't have this.
Oh, we don't have no wonder.
No. Yeah, this is a thing. I have filters and effects. So let me show you what that does.
Okay. Yeah. Now I know why I couldn't find it.
Yeah. No. It's like. So let me show you. It basically lets me. It's something I purchased, and let me find one I want. I want HDR. So it does effects on my pictures. So I'm going to. I'll open it up for you.
So we have to purchase those kind of things.
Yeah, this thing is I purchased because I do this a lot.
Okay,
so
I got it.
You can see it just does this preset and it gets me adjustments, and I can change colors,
Yeah, yeah.
and I can, so it's just kind of a preset thing I've done because I've been, I work with a lot of pictures. It makes sense. So, I mean, this is, I don't know, it's kind of nice, right? I love this is a nice color. So if I like that, I just say, okay, but I can make this adjustable. I can change colors and all, I mean, again, it's fully adjustable. Click OK. And then it's going to take it back into Photoshop here. So it didn't mess with the layer. It makes a whole new layer. So it's kind of one of those things you can work with, So that, yeah, that's what this is up here. This is just
Okay, I got it.
my thing. And then you can turn all those things on. So literally with a couple clicks of the button, I can go from, from this to this, basically a color shift. It works out great if I'm doing a lot of pictures and I want them all to be, in this case, the Blue Monday kind of look. I can click it quickly and do that. So yeah, I bought that. I think it was probably about $100 for that. And it used to be free. It was called the Nick Collection. And it is still the Nick Collection, but it's VXO tool. I think they're German or something like that. But by doing it this way, they're allowed updates and stuff like that. So, but it was something I used a lot. So it was, worthwhile for me to do that as a designer with that. So it's cool. It's a pretty cool tool. I dig it a lot. Cancel that one. And again, it's just different ways that you can control and play with your images. And again, there's a lot of like kind of presets added in there. So again, as you become more, I don't know, when you start using them more, it becomes cost effective for you. I wouldn't say any of you guys need to buy this now. But at some point you got to want to do these things and you want to do them fast. So it's worth doing it. So these are kind of some camera looks and feels. And you can pick like what kind of camera, like a wet plate, which is like an old-fashioned kind of black and white style. When they first started photography, they were doing this kind of stuff. You can see it totally does all kinds of other effects, right? So it's pretty cool. It doesn't work with the type on it, but it's kind of cool, right? I took the same picture and kind of cut it up, got creative with it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's just visually. I mean, for me to do all this take me forever. Okay, so I can just kind of come in here and play with it, and cool. I like it. And it's saved. And again, it did it as a new layer, so it didn't destroy my original work. So that's part of why this thing costs more, because it's a very robust and doesn't mess with your artwork. It just kind of puts it in, so you can change your look on live. So yeah, that's what this is. Sorry to confuse you guys on that.
Angelique had a question.
Yes. Good.
Oh, I typed it in chat, but I was going to ask if we use the mockup template to turn the project in, or were we just using it for the exercise for today?
No, for the record album, I want you to use the template to build it out. and then
Okay.
save it as a PDF.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
My chat got closed. It should work well for you. I mean, it's the same thing I'm doing here. You're just turning layers on and off, adding it to it. It really gets to be cool. And like I said, the cool thing is it's, you know, lets you mock it up in a way that kind of looks really nice when you're all said and done. Okay. Other questions? Oh man, like that, it's changed. So it's pretty cool. It's and I have a fair amount of templates. I have templates for like logos and stationery, business cards, and I'll give you these as we go. And that kind of next projects after this, we're gonna get into some Illustrator work. We'll do some logos and stuff. So I'll give you these because I think they really help you. One, just kind of figure out how to work these items, but also as you start to work with clients, you know, it's a really cool way of starting to show them what it's going to physically look like. Because you're going to find most people don't get what we do, right? They think we go and we're coloring with a coloring book all day long or something like that. So it's good to do a little bit of extra work to show them what it's going to look like, and it helps them make those decisions because they can't relate to this stuff. Does that make sense? So if I say, hey, I'm going to make a record album, you know, they know what it looks like, but they don't know what it looks like, right? But when I do it like this, and if I showed it to them, they're like, oh, they totally get it. They can talk to you better about it. They can see what they like and don't like. Whereas if I just gave them, you know, the artwork like this, it's hard for them to, even though it's still square and it's still like a rectangular album shape, they just don't get it. They just, you know, you'd be surprised of how much people don't get it. I don't know why, but they don't. And maybe it's because we're the visual people and they're not. But looking at this, they don't respond to it as well as if they're looking at it like this. Does that make sense? So I think mock-ups are a good thing. They're easily accessible today. Like I said, many of them are free. I think this vinyl record one is free. I don't think I paid. I'm almost sure I didn't pay for it. So I just kind of Googled mock-up records and it came up in my Google search. Okay, so you know, look those things up. But I'm giving it to you. You can just go to the website and download it, and then you can add to it from there. All right. Questions? Other questions? So Tuesday is the album cover. I'm sorry, the book cover. So questions about that? Again, for Tuesday, we're just asking for the front. We're doing it 6x9 minimum. Okay, so I'm going to do 6 wide, 9 high as a minimum, 300 pixels. So if you want to go bigger, smaller, whatever, or bigger, I should say, go feel free. But I want this as a minimum size. And then you're going to just add your artwork in there. I'm going to open up. You know, so you're going to have some pictures. You're going to add a title. Okay. Change that color out. Keep this thing very. And then we're going to have, of course, the author. Okay. And then you're going to save this as a PDF and submit it to me. Does that make sense? So pretty simple, shouldn't take you too long. But again, I want you to get in there and play and modify, you know, work with your files, your layers, work with the topography. We went over opacity boxes today, or maybe adding a glow or those kind of items to it. They make a lot of difference, right? So, I mean, this is here, but let me just add an effect to it. I'm going to add a stroke effect to it, and I'm going to give it a color. Blue. Writer. So this is a stroke, and that's obviously a little bit big, but you can kind of bring that down. So it's just kind of a little thin hairline stroke. You can make it big and bubbly, you know, just to kind of play with it. There's a, you know, a lot of ways of doing it, and then you can adjust where that goes. Okay, so you know, play with the items. Okay, play with the type. Don't just kind of, hey, that's what came up in my computer. You know, get in there and work your stuff so you can get that the way you want. Okay, play with the where it goes. Oh, okay, how's it look there? Yeah, maybe it's over here. Maybe it's somewhere down here. Okay, when I get down here, I'm gonna have to play with something else. Again, another opacity box, or maybe another stroke effect on this, just so it can read. Okay, and will pop up the way I want. Or maybe I go back to the black, the dark area up here to kind of work that in. Maybe now everything is going to be centered. Again, where it's 6, I go to my ruler, click with my mouse, and I can drag out a guide. Pop it down at 3. And then I can kind of position these items into place. Return, Command T. I'm going to shift that over again using my arrow keys. Or I can just drag it with my mouse. Return and drop it into place. So I want you kind of experiment, guys. Look at it and see what's working and what's feeling right visually. Part of what we're doing is training your eye to see things from an artistic, designerly kind of fashion. And that's going to, you know, make you a better designer as you go. All right, other questions? Stop this here. Okay, anything else? Pause our